I look at what's taking place in Bolivia right now, and there's a certain degree of anger, powerlessness, a certain feeling of just unfairness. And maybe it's because I consider the guy a lefty, and that the guy, by all measure, at least by all measures of our measures, succeeded. And yet he's disposed. And the Western media runs along with their narrative pro-regime change. We look at that stuff out there as if it's something, a factor of them, missing the point, and to some degree even sanitized from the standpoint of the way our media engages the stuff, that our own democratic order is breaking down. It doesn't seem like that from one specific race to the next, but step back and look at how your politics has changed over the course of the last 20, 30 years, at least within the course of my lifetime. Hillary Clinton got through without being charged in 2016 by the skin of her teeth. Meaning, if Hillary Clinton was named Bob Johnson would have been put in prison. An Obama Justice Department cleared Clinton. An Obama Justice Department. Obama appoints Loretta Lynch, who's overseeing a case of his Secretary of State. Everything I just said here is true. Everything I said is true. There's no hedge or there's no embellishment. Loretta Lynch, appointed by Obama to oversee a case of his Secretary of State, said she was leaving this choice up to the Justice Department, essentially Comey. Former FBI lawyer Lisa Page admitted under questioning from Texas Republican John Ratcliffe last summer that the FBI was ordered by the Obama DOJ to not consider charging Hillary Clinton for gross negligence in the handling of classified information. The congressman alleged in a social media post late Tuesday, citing newly unearthed transcript of Page's closed-door testimony. So Loretta Lynch is saying, I'm not going to be involved in this process. She was involved in that process. And Comey himself, under testimony, makes the point that I was bothered when the Obama Justice Department, Lynch, tried to get me to talk about a criminal case as if it was a matter, meaning to align what we, the government, who's supposed to be outside of the political space, to talk about matters that are criminal in a political way. Even Comey admitted that. So, Clinton gets off by the skin of her teeth by what seems to be a Justice Department that was favorable to Obama's wishes, whether Obama articulated them or not. I mean, he put the woman in office. Clinton looks like she's barely making it in the polls, if she's making it at all. At some point, a dossier paid for by the Clinton camp and backed, by the way, by Republican elements, gets stovepiped into the FBI, a dossier that they know is dodgy, that is making all of these outrageous claims with Donald Trump. None of the stuff is proven, none of the stuff is legit, and they use that as the basis to spy on a Republican campaign, meaning a Justice Department, an intelligence service, decides to spy on a campaign that I strongly suspect many of them thought was an outright disaster. That's outrageous in and of itself. Meaning if Bush did that to Obama, it would be unacceptable, and nobody would accept Bush's comments that, look, we were looking for the Russians. We thought the Russians had something to do with it. On top of this, Papadopoulos, again, working with the Trump campaign, talks to a gentleman named Joseph Misfit. Misfit, according to Mueller and Comey, is a Russian guy. And we find out later that this guy is worked with our own intelligence services. Papadopoulos says Misfit told him about Russians had information on Clinton. Papadopoulos at a drunken night tells somebody, and there are honeypots, not to mention spooks, trying to get at Papadopoulos. And they eventually get him on a basic lie. However, Misfit, they don't charge. The media never asks one basic question. Is it possible that people within a Justice Department, under the discretion of the President Obama, who is a Democrat, is it possible, to any degree that's possible, that they will behave in ways that will be favorable to one campaign over another? And considering they just let Hillary Clinton off with something that anybody else would have been charged with, I don't understand why that question is not relevant. And yet, the media never engages that question in one iota. They hate Trump. And because they hate Trump, they're blind to any other notion that some other level of corruption may be going on, especially from a party structure that doesn't want to accept the election results. On top of that, you have the Democrats right now complaining that the President of the United States, Donald Trump, was using his leverage as president to get information on his political opponents. Now, I think that's bad. I don't necessarily think the president should be trying to get political fodder out of his other countries in order to hit your political opponents. By the same token, I thought it was bad when Democrats were doing it to Trump. Ukrainian efforts to sabotage Trump backfired. What were the Ukrainian efforts? The DNC was sending an operative to the Ukrainian embassy to get that Ukrainian embassy to put out information about Manafort in order to get congressional hearings to be able to attack Trump indirectly, but also to get information from the Ukraine itself. Now, the embassy owns up to this. And Ukraine, who thought Hillary Clinton was going to win, like everybody else thought Hillary Clinton was going to win, had every impetus in the world to be favorable to the interests of the Democratic Party in this request of getting this information out. Because whatever you believe, the Ukraine did do that. They did produce that information in order to attack Manafort and to hurt Trump. The Political article makes the point that Ukraine screwed up and Trump is going to be pissed at them because they were working with the DNC to attack Trump. I don't like it when the DNC does it. I don't like it when Trump does it. In our political process, you've had a situation where Clinton was impeached over a blowjob. The public wasn't for it. Republicans didn't care. George Bush gets into a war, ends up getting this country, lies this country into a war, kills 1 million people, 4,000 Americans, $7 trillion that's spent. We've been into those countries for 18 years, sparking all sorts of wars, drone bombings, torture, the gulag on the side of the coast. And the Democratic Party were looking forward, but not looking back. They don't touch him at all. Obama gets in office, and the Republican Party takes the extraordinary step to filibuster. And I'm not using the term literally, I just mean to not even hear Obama's Supreme Court pick. That's extraordinary. That's essentially an ignoring of the law. Meaning, yes, they could do it technically, but whether they could do it technically or not, it's so beyond the pale in regards to actions that a party would take. It is a flagrant ignoring of any notion of political norms. They wanted the Supreme Court. They didn't want to give Obama his pick, and so they just didn't. And they didn't care what the public would think about it. And the public apparently didn't think too much about it because they ultimately put Donald Trump in. When they put Trump in, the Democratic Party, yes, worked with a foreign government to ding Trump, and with the Justice Department spying on Trump, still ends up winning. And the party sows this notion of Trump and Russia, never once accepting the election results. If I am a partisan actor, and I am just entirely partisan in the way that I look at politics, you can make an argument that the Democrats tying Trump up with one conspiracy theory after the next works in a political way of trying to tie up the president. I am not a political actor in this process, meaning I find this to be troubling. In this particular case, you've had a president that was chosen by the American public and the Democratic Party, pushed by Clinton in order to explain their failure, comes up with Russia meddling. They get an investigation, and their investigation that could have literally taken down the president in a soft coup. If Mueller would have said anything, Trump would have been out of office. Mueller comes back. No link between those two things. Mueller doesn't do the job. It was a conspiracy theory. They ran with that conspiracy theory for 3 years. Started from a political operations document. And the media never at once asked, how did this start? Why did this start? Were there political motives of the people involved in this process to push this on? Is it possible that the spying on the Trump campaign was done so for political reasons with people with political motives, and that the elements of the intelligence services were not apolitical in their actions in the way that they went about things, but they had specific interests? The media doesn't touch those questions, even though those questions are infinitely relevant. And in no way should a team, meaning Democrats, be given a pass in this weird, odd way that the media has, for the most part, given them a pass on things that are utterly atrocious. This is bad. If Trump and Russia is bad, this is also bad. The question of who is misfit is relevant. Why wasn't he charged is relevant. Was spying on the Trump campaign done for political and partisan reasons? That is relevant. And right now, after 3 years of a conspiracy theory where the media has no self-reflection at all, and the Democratic Party literally loses all credibility in this process, screaming that Trump was working with the Russians, Trump is being informed by Vladimir Putin, Trump is being told what to do by Putin. Do you know that one of the issues that Democrats brought up was, hey, Trump was concerned about what the Russians thought in regards to giving the missiles? You know what's true? Trump did give those missiles. Trump's concern was because those missiles were going to be used to attack Russians. Obama wouldn't even give those missiles, and he wouldn't give those missiles because those missiles would be used to attack Russians. This lacks credibility. And what is taking place right now in the hearing, I find to be a circus. If you want to get the president out, there's an election for that. I am sick of these de facto ways of trying to rid the president. If you're so certain that what the president did was an impeachable offense, fine. Put the information out there and let the public decide in the election that is literally supposed to take place in a year. What is with this de facto, or not de facto, this trying to get the person out, not through typical electoral means, but trying to find any and other loophole that you can do to get rid of the person? Are you so terrified of Trump that you can't beat him in a general election that you have to go through these loopholes? Early on in the process, they were talking about getting Trump out in a 25th Amendment. Are you insane? The public chose. And it is not for the Democratic Party to make the determination on whether the public's choice was right. I would imagine being in the Democratic Party, you would have thought that the public's choice was wrong. But this is unsustainable. We're losing any notion of a normal democratic process. And this impeachment hearing, regardless of the way the media closed this and everything else, and the Democratic Party talks about it, and I understand you have people like AOC who thinks it's a great idea, it's a breakdown of democratic order. If you can't impeach Bush for wiping 1 million people off the face of the earth, then this looks ridiculous. When you did the exact same thing, it looks ridiculous. When Joe Biden stands on a stage and says he's not going to give them their funding after a coup that Western powers provoked, then the quid pro quo thing was done in the last administration also. This starts to look ridiculous. It's not that I agree that the president should get information on his political opponent. Don't misunderstand me. My point is the notion that this is an impeachable offense. The president sets the tone for the foreign policy. You may not like it, but it is what it is. If you think it's that bad, censor the president. Put the information out there and let the public decide. But that's not what they want to do. Here's the catch. This impeachment thing has more to do about dragging out the information. It's not that I think Democrats are concerted in this. I don't think Nancy Pelosi wants this. She understands that impeachment is unpredictable in regards to how it works in electoral politics, especially if you don't get them. It is very possible, especially with the fundraising numbers, this backfires. I mean, ultimately you have a situation where Trump and the Republicans have raised $130 million over the third quarter. You can add up all the Democratic totals that don't come close. Even the fundraising in September, they are breaking bank. The impeachment hearing is a fundraising bonanza for the right. Because what they know is what I know, that the Democratic Party never once accepted the election results. And ultimately, all of this, the conspiracy theory that erupted for the last 2 years, pushed by mainstream media, pushed by the Democratic Party, that came up with bupkis, just immediately flipped over into this. Leakers. Not a whistleblower, a leaker. Whistleblowers are not protected and covered by the security state. This guy is entirely protected and covered by the security state. Look at this. This is Jim Jordan going after Mueller over Joseph Misfit. I'm showing this for a reason, because I want to show. Jim Jordan has skeletons in his own closet, so fair enough. But listen to him go after Mueller. He's right on this.
The FBI, and the FBI opens an investigation based on that fact. You point this out on page 1 of the report. July 31st, Director of the FBI interviewed Joseph Mifsud on February 10th, 2017. In that interview, Mr. Mifsud lied. You point this out on page 193, volume 1. Mifsud denied. Mifsud also falsely stated. In addition, Mifsud omitted. 3 times he lied to the FBI, yet you didn't charge him with the crime.
Excuse me, did you say one? I'm sorry, did you say 193?
Volume 1, 193. He lied 3 times. You pointed out in the report. Why didn't you charge him with the crime?
I can't get into internal deliberations with regard who would or would not be.
Charge a lot of other people for making false statements. Let's remember this. In 2016, the FBI did something they probably haven't done before. They spied on 2 American citizens associated with a presidential campaign, George Papadopoulos and Carter Page. With Carter Page, they went to the FISA court. They used the now famous dossier as part of the reason they were able to get the warrant and spy on Carter Page for a better part of a year. With Mr. Papadopoulos, they didn't go to the court. They used human sources. All kinds of, from about the moment Papadopoulos joins the Trump campaign, you got all these people all around the world starting to swirl around him.
Whatever you think of Jim Jordan, this is true. Media doesn't touch this. His point is, your case is dodgy at best, and it falls apart the moment that you pull Misfit out of it. Why didn't you charge Misfit with a crime? The media doesn't touch this. Mainstream media ignores this. Jim Jordan gets the opportunity to ask Adam Schiff.
But as I said,
now my argument has been this has been a partisan, circus. Adam Schiff is asked a question by Jim Jordan. Listen to Adam Schiff's response.
Members of Congress, you are the only member who knows who that individual is, and your staff is the only staff of any member of Congress who's had a chance to talk with that individual. We would like that opportunity. When might that happen in this proceeding today?
first, as the gentleman knows, that's a false statement.
Actually, that was a true statement. What he just asked Schiff was a true statement. You know how I know? Washington Post. No friend to Donald Trump. Schiff's false claim his committee had not spoken to the whistleblower. The lawmaker heading into the impeachment inquiry misled reporters about his committee's contact with the whistleblower before the complaint. Adam Schiff's team had already talked to the whistleblower. He just sat here in a committee hearing and flat out lied. Look, this is a circus. I don't think the Republican Party in the Senate is going to impeach Trump. I suspect the Democratic Party knows that. What this is about is dragging out information being leaked. It's the same strategy that they had when they were trying to get the Ukraine to drop information on Trump, to get congressional hearings on Manafort, again, in order to ding Trump. The strategy is, for the most part, the same. Drag out the impeachment hearings, get information stovepiped up into the public about Trump, where you can keep that information being leaked over and over and over again over the course of a year or however long the impeachment hearing takes. The problem with this is Trump's base is packed in. The American public has already read the transcripts, and these other people, giving their opinion on the transcripts, matters less. You get to the point where, because you've been engaged in this type of conduct for over the course of so long, that people may tune out. And I still say this is unpredictable. Pulling back from just the purely partisan aspect of this. One party decided to cheat the person who was running in the race. One party decided to let off one of the people who were running in the race, who was Secretary of State. Just corruption that the media, just for the most part, just completely ignored. Meaning, an Obama Justice Department letting off the Obama Secretary of State off of a crime that anybody else would have been convicted with. One party had made the choice, for the most part, to not accept the election results and instead scream Russia. One party has done that. I guess my point is, whatever you want to think of the Republican Party, and there's all sorts of problems with it. This notion of cutting down the voting, the number of people who vote, the voter ID laws, all of these things in order to suppress the vote. the shutting down polling locations. But whether you realize it or not, when given the opportunity in the primaries, the Democratic Party was willing to do the exact same thing. The party structures are not put there by God. Supposedly, it's what the public wants. And the party, an elite within the context of that party, has made the decision to tamp down on various people who are running in the race in the various states, has decided to use the DSCC and the DCCC in order to sanction lefties who are running against incumbents, despite the fact that Joe Kennedy seems to be able to run against Merkley without any issue at all. I'm making the point that the Democratic Party has decided to be dramatically undemocratic in the way it's been running its politics. And this is an unsustainable process. Think of, for the moment, if a Republican is in the opposition. What stops them from doing the exact same thing? Meaning you're creating a structure where both sides, almost like a war, where one side's actions justified by the other side's actions. This is unsustainable. That's my only point. And yes, I do consider this to be somewhat of a circus. I gotta be honest. And I don't even know the effect of this from the standpoint of the debates and everything that are going on. Instead of making the very basic argument, Trump failed, it gets mixed into this impeachment stuff and people's feelings about the impeachment stuff and whether or not they think the impeachment is legitimate. And if they don't think it's legitimate, you will be punished and penalized for even going through with the process. I strongly suspect that Nancy Pelosi's reason for pushing back against impeachment in the beginning was for this reason. By the same token, the political benefits of potentially dragging out information being leaked about one of the administrations may outweigh that. From a Sanders supporter's perspective, I would prefer the Trump failed perspective. This gets unpredictable. And either way, I think it's a breakdown of our democratic process, especially when one of the parties had made the decision that they themselves are the party in charge of determining who should be in office and who should be president, and to completely rebuke and reject an administration that won fair and square, relatively won. Like, share,